All right, 11 minutes late, but hey, I'm so
Yay.
glad I got Tom Tabor now on my Zoom call. Tom, thank you so much for your time and welcome to the show. How are you
Thank
doing?
you. I really appreciate the opportunity of reaching out to me.
My pleasure. Tom, I mean, it's the moment I read a little bit about you. I mean, I've been following just quite recently, to be honest with you, right? But the moment I read like plant medicine and Bitcoin and a Bitcoiner on plant medicine, I was like, this is my guy, this is my friend,
Awesome. Well,
he's
thank
on
you
my
so much.
wavelength. Okay, so Tom, I mean, I checked you out, on Nostr, for people who don't know, this like the decentralized version of X or Twitter. And
Mhm.
you got a page also on Facebook. Why don't you just please introduce yourself? Like, what's your like maybe in a nutshell, what's your journey to Bitcoin and plant medicine? What's the connection? How do you connect those? And yeah, just tell me about yourself, please.
I think the connection for me is they're the two most important things in my life. So, and I think that they are actually self-reinforcing. But as far as my story goes, I first learned about Bitcoin when I had some friends that were mining it back in like 2011. And I learned a little bit about it then, but I didn't learn how to buy any. And it was really heartbreaking for me when I saw the prices like $11 of Bitcoin, didn't buy any. And then I felt bad about it for like 10 years and said, I'm too late, I'm too late. And every moment it gets too late, not thinking maybe now's the right time to get in. And it wasn't until I dated a woman about 4 years ago. And she said, Tom, just let go of all that and just look at Bitcoin again and study it. And I was like, okay. And I did. And I got into that. I got into shit coins. I climbed Mount Stupid, as Alex Stanzik calls it, for about 9 months. And then I figured
Great
out, oh,
journey.
Michael Saylor was right. It's not just because he's a billionaire that actually you should hold in Bitcoin only. And so I got to be a maxi then. It was actually right before going to the Unconfiscatable conference. It was my first Bitcoin conference. And I knew that Alex Svetsky would be there. And I knew that if I came up and said that I held any Ethereum or anything horrible like that, I would feel bad inside. And that was kind of the leverage I needed to say, okay, it's time to be a maxi. And then that conference really sealed it for me. And it's been amazing. Uh, the plant medicine journey is a few years. Well, it was, I don't know, maybe my first experience was about 15 years ago with some ayahuasca in a men's group in Colorado. And I had a chance for one journey with that. And I'll explain more about what that is as we go. But then it was about 10 years later, I was invited to a ceremony, and that radically changed my life. It was just this letting go of all this angst I'd had from childhood, recent traumas, and just letting at least a good chunk of it go in the first weekend of two ceremonies. And that was stunning. And I said, well, whatever I'm doing now, I'm giving that up. I'm going to dedicate my life to learning more about these and helping other people find them. So that's what I've been doing for about 6 years now.
Oh, this is a fascinating journey because I mean, I don't have to tell you. I mean, when you are on a psychedelic journey, right? I mean, it's a plant medicine, right? And I've never experienced, nor has my wife, DMT or ayahuasca. Is it pronounced ayahuasca or ayahuasca? I never get it.
It's sometimes pronounced either way, but most
Uh-huh.
commonly ayahuasca.
Because my wife always tries to correct me. So I'm like, okay, okay, for you, it's like ayahuasca. All right. So, and you get like, if you have never, right, if you've never experienced it, you can't just explain to somebody because it's a reality, more real as, a lot of, prominent people within the psychedelic community say it's more real than reality or, or
Mhm.
whatever however they articulate it. So, I find this fusion, this amalgamation, or I don't know what we call it, this connection of the fields of the potential of Bitcoin and psychedelic. I mean, I'm not trying to do this like in a compartmentalized
That's
fashion,
okay.
like Bitcoin, but it's the potential for a world, a planet, a civilization, a humanity, an ethos, or whatever, a peace, evolution, whatever we can achieve through Bitcoin. And that, with the total transformation of consciousness, of thinking, of emotions, of soul, because I've researched a lot about, the essence of creation, the essence of science, magnetic gravitational fields. So, has there been any moment? I know I'm going pretty much into the midst of this whole discussion, but
Okay.
maybe if you could just go, you can go back as far as you can, but was there any time of a moment where you said like, okay, this is it. Okay, this is where we can achieve like an equilibrium. I don't know, where we can get like a majority of humanity. I mean, we don't need, as I always say, we don't need like 8 billion people. All what we need is like a tipping point, a critical mass of people um, going through different fields of, consciousness and comprehension, like holistic comprehension. Is there any like moment where you're like, okay, this is the connection now, okay, where we can accelerate this process or whatever?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a couple ways to go at that. I think one of them is this. Well, in Bitcoin, your viewers are going to know Bitcoin more than plant medicines. And I believe truly that Bitcoin is a revolutionary technology that's going to transform our whole civilization on this planet. That when we change the incentives of the games that humans are playing, and we change from a short-term, cheap and easy way of living to a long-term, what really matters, that is going to revolutionize, perhaps over generations, but hopefully we see something in our lifetimes that we actually see a radical change away from a society that just gives participation awards rather than actual trophies for true proof of work. You've actually done the thing. And so we see this world now that there's a lot of participation awards going around for just somebody being in the game instead of actually excelling at the game. And see, Bitcoin is actually that thing that will change the way that we think and do everything. As if that future is going to actually unfold, it will be an economic revolution, but I believe it also has to be a spiritual revolution too. And not picky about what spiritual path you wish to take, because I think, if you're following something that's truly from the heart, it's all going to go to a similar place. That we need to have a spiritual awakening. And you mentioned consciousness. One thing that my friend Chris Douglas says, he says, we don't have consciousness. Consciousness has us. And what we're really doing is not trying to increase our consciousness. We're trying to actually clear the field between us and consciousness so we can experience it more fully. And I would say in the case of ayahuasca, that's very much what's happening. You said it's like reality, but more real than reality. I would say it's a higher state of consciousness or connection to consciousness that you sense. And you're in a place where, oh, I'm actually truly myself without my masks, without my identity, without my thoughts about myself. I'm just breathing as a living human on this planet that's whirling around a sun, whirling around a galaxy, and whirling through infinity. It's like, whoa, okay, that actually is real. And it's hard to remember that. That can just be like, oh, that's a sci-fi movie. Oh, actually, we're living a sci-fi movie that is rather profound and quite a gift.
Let me ask you just because I think for audience or followers or whoever is listening here, the preconditions for going on a journey, like on a real deep, like ayahuasca, or it could be even like psilocybin, or like a real, spiritual,
Right.
or I mean the prereq, because there's a like sort of opinions, or some people have had experiences, but now beside the set and the setting, would you say that the maturity, the age, the wisdom, how do you feel? I mean, are there any factors or conditions or parameters that you would say, you should check those
Yes.
out before
Yes. I would say if you're ever involved in these plant medicine, psilocybin or ayahuasca, well, particularly in ayahuasca, that you need to have a plant medicine person, a very experienced medicine man, medicine woman that has years of experience, that has years of understanding, training in the jungle. Those are the people you want to get, and people that aren't just trying to make a quick buck. Uh, and that's both in America, South America as well. Like, check out who you're sitting with. I would say that's of utmost importance. And their experience and people that have sat with them. So just knowing that the setting is important. And I guess another thing that people often go into a ceremony going, okay, well, here's my goals of what I'm going to achieve. I'm going to figure out if this is the right career for me, if this is the right partner for me, or something, or I'm going to get rid of this childhood thing. It's like, actually, you probably have no control at all. All I do is I go in with an open heart and say, show me what I need to see, help me heal, and just get greater energetic presence and well-being within my body. And whatever happens, I'm happy for the journey. I'm here to surrender and accept.
Very interesting. I met I have a Persian, or because I'm originally from Iran, from Persia, and I had
Oh,
a
nice.
very good, she friend. She's like actually much older than me, and I remember seeing her like last time on a wedding, right in France. She she invited all of us. So anyway, she that's what she told me. She said she purchased. She's a doctor. She's a dentist. And she said many years ago, she went to Peru and bought like a village, or not a village, but like uh, a property or something like that, and turned it. I don't know now legally with it. She had to turn it into some kind of legal construct or whatever. But she gave it away as a charity, or something like for the shamans, curanderos, that tribe, the indigenous tribe. So okay, hey, you know what? This is yours, okay?
Wow.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, amazing woman. The moment, I mean, she's like a sister to me. The moment I met her, it's like meeting you. It's like, I mean, I haven't met you in person, but it's like a total flow of information and God, so much ethos and peace and the same principles. It's amazing. So, but the only thing is that I would love to come back always on a regular basis back to you, to the shamans, to the curanderos, and she told me she had like I don't know, in total, that was the last time we talked, like 60 or 65 ayahuasca ceremonies.
Okay,
So like,
wow.
oh my
That's
God.
really nice.
Now, I mean, I know that you need to take your time, right? It's not like it's not like a weekend trip. Like you really need to go deep into yourself. You need to take time. Maybe even the best thing I think would be like what, a few weeks, maybe 1 or 2 months. The longer, the better. And is it like each time like deeper, more intense, more, multi-dimensional, or how would you describe that?
I think in terms of preparation for ceremony, you can take it very seriously or not so seriously. And I've seen people do both. I've done both as well. Where I've actually spent a long time preparing and having the right diet, and that's what's recommended. There's a specific diet for ayahuasca that is an elimination diet, basically getting to very simple, plain, natural foods, not fried, no fermented things like this. And you can take that very seriously, or if in America, Americans are just going to be Americans, and so they'll do what they do. And if you take it more seriously, you typically have a more profound experience. When we go to the jungle, for instance, we're eating the food they serve us, and it's very simple: rice, potatoes, lentil beans, oatmeal that with no sugar, no salt. And when we are there, just the jungle itself is so much more powerful. And we you go pretty deep when you do all that prep. And then taking care of yourself afterwards as well is great. But if you don't, you still have an effect. You still have a great effect. So I don't know. Prepping is good, but it's not mandatory. And uh, you'll have an experience either way. In terms of like the progression of what experiences are like, I would say the early ceremonies are getting at your root traumas or your root things that are causing dis-ease within you, causing that not feeling whole, feeling all the things that the society does to us: anxiety, depression, jealousy, fearfulness, greed, all these lower level human things. It's like, hey, you're doing this. Why? You're having this sensation within your body. Why? Let's get to the root of it. And that's often stored in your body as an energetic configuration. So in the bottom pit of your stomach, you feel something. In your chest, it's really tight. You have trouble speaking for yourself, speaking out. So these places where you have stuck energy, it's going to go there, and it's going to do work on it. And you may have visuals, you may not. Doesn't matter either way. You're surrendering to it. And then all the master plant medicines are typically purgatives. So it can grab that energetic configuration and you can purge that into a bucket as vomit, but it's not like drinking too much beer and puking in a toilet. It's more about this deeper soul-like thing that's coming out, and it's getting out of your body. You can also purge with tears. You can purge by sitting on the toilet as well, sometimes all three at once. so so
But it's like very individual, right? I mean, because I heard from a from a friend of mine. She said that she didn't have to puke, funnily enough. She was in Peru, with
Mhm.
deep, ayahuasca, but she didn't have to puke or anything. She didn't have like no physical. It seems it's fascinating. Some people are like, I think most people probably, puke or have diarrhea, whatever, like go to the toilet or, but some people, don't. So it depends, I guess, what's your nutrition like, what's your, physical status like, right? So a lot of
It
factors
could be,
play into
it
this,
could be a
right?
lot of factors. It can also be the strength of the ayahuasca you're taking as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
So some folks will actually water it down and it won't be as potent. So there's that potential. Another place that can block it is your pineal gland. So
Yeah.
that third eye that we have, it can actually become calcified over time through a lifetime of behaviors and diet and that sort of thing. And it may be hard to break through that. So actually decalcifying the pineal gland is like the first step, and that may take some ceremonies without any purging whatsoever. So I think there's a lot of factors that go into it, but every experience is completely different. That's why I say I just surrender to it, because sometimes it may be just a beautiful, glorious visual evening, or it could be a really dark night where you're really going through the stuff. And the dark nights, those are my favorite, the ones that are hard, because you learn the most in them. You're actually getting the most information about what you can change to make your life better. So
Wow.
and typically after that purge is when this glorious sort of connection to the universe opens up. It's like removing that thing that's keeping you from that connection to greater consciousness is getting removed so that you can then experience that in a more full and real way. And it's not a mental thing, I would say also. So some of the things you've described are like thinking about it and what are the mental constructs of it. And it's not that. It's all within the body. It's all vibrations within the body. And that's what we are. The whole universe is made of vibrations. And so we're just one configuration of those vibrations.
Wow. Okay. I think it's a good start. Like when we like talk about this, like there's a spectrum of light, like that we see. Like it's very like
Very
ridiculously
narrow.
narrow,
Yeah.
like what we see, like in our sober or more or less sober, or whatever, even on dry on all these
Normal
socially
waking
accepted drugs,
consciousness.
like
Yeah.
could it be that because I always said, let's just call it DMT or whatever, that the essence of it, now, first of all, I mean, this is what I find fascinating because ayahuasca, this thing that they put like, I mean, how did they find out? What is it? Hundreds or thousands of years ago, that they were able, the curanderos or shamans go into the jungle, it's sort of a purging. I don't know, like a mental and soul purging, and then how did they find out that they have to mixture, like combine, what is it, two or three plants together? I mean, that alone, that fact alone, is so fascinating.
It
Do
is.
they talk? Do they communicate with the plants, or how did it? Yeah, sorry about that.
Yes, that's okay. I can tell you. There's a number of stories about the origin of ayahuasca, and it was perhaps at least 5,000 years ago, possibly 10 or more as well. And it's two plants. One is a vine called Banisteria caapi, and it's often called the ayahuasca vine or the vine of death, actually, which is not a poisonous vine. It's a vine that kills the ego. So it's a ego killing, the ego death. Which ties into Bitcoin with Ego Death Capital, by the way.
Oh,
Jeff
you're
Boos,
familiar with that?
yeah,
You
Jeff
must
Boos,
know Jeff Moose pretty well, I guess. Yeah,
and Lynn Alden, I believe a few
I
others
love
involved.
this guy. Yeah.
So there's a connection. But this ego death, it's this vine that grows in the jungle, and then a leafy kind of bushy plant called chacruna. And the leaves of this chacruna plant are the highest concentration of DMT, dimethyltryptamine, in the world, which is also called the spirit molecule, the molecule that gets us in direct communication with the thing that is making us. But if you just eat those DMT leaves, they'll go into your stomach, and the enzymes in your stomach will break them down, and they'll never enter your brain. It's part of your body's system protect your brain from chemicals it's not sure about. So it can't pass the blood-brain barrier. The only way that you can actually ingest DMT and have it go to your brain is if you also combine it with an MAOI, a medical term for monoamine oxidase inhibitor. It turns out the ayahuasca vine or the Banisteria caapi is a high concentration of MAOIs. And even to this day, with all of our scientific research, this is still the only way that you can ingest DMT and actually have it take effect. So, how did they figure out that this vine and this leafy bush that don't grow near each other? It's not like they were right under each other and said, we'll just put them together. It was actually the first plant medicine, which is mapacho, which is tobacco. So it's wild tobacco that grows in the jungle, and they would smoke it. They also use it as a shamanic snuff. And but the smoking in Mapacho is what every curandero, every medicine man, every ayahuasquero will use for protection in a ceremony. And it was by smoking Mapacho, the spirit of Mapacho told them, take this vine and take this leaf, bash this vine into shreds, put the leaves into a big pot, maybe like a 50-liter pot, and boil it down over 3 days, adding more water, getting more and more concentrated to, or just with like a liter or two of ayahuasca from this huge pot of leaves and vine. And then that is the medicine that puts you in touch with that thing that is making you, I would say, a portal to Mother Nature, a direct experience of Mother Nature herself.
Wow,
And
this is amazing. This is amazing because you know why? Because I investigated and researched my for my PhD. I studied law, but there was a topic that I got totally deep into the rabbit hole of. It's about liability of the cigarette corporations, tobacco industry for many years. I investigated and researched the internal documents of tobacco. So anyway, I just don't want to talk about this anymore. But I went deep into the rabbit hole of tobacco. So my question is the original like wild jungle, whatever tobacco, does it contain like even maybe a slightly psychedelic substance called harmaline or something like that? It might, also
oh,
induce some kind
um, I'm not sure if Mapacho has harmaline in it. I had to look that up, but it does induce a slightly psychoactive experience. So I spent a month in the jungle by myself in a hut. It's called Dieta. And so they would bring me food 3 times a day, just rice and potatoes 3 times a day. And you just sit and you'll sit with a plant medicine that's not psychoactive necessarily. It's working on some system in the body, maybe the heart, the liver, the nervous system, any sort of things like that. So there's a lot of different plants they have for targeting that. But as you're taking this, I'm also smoking mapachos. And when I would take the medicine in the morning, smoke a mapacho, I just look at the leaves in the forest, and they would just start fluttering and kind of just do sort of a shimmering across them. And so there's that sort of effect that can happen with it. But I'm not sure about the harmaline. But in the ayahuasca vine, the harmaline, so it's an MAOI, but it also contains harmaline and some other compounds, which are deeply healing. They would say the spirit of ayahuasca is a feminine spirit, an actual spirit in another plane, and that she comes through the harmaline and those other compounds in the vine. That's her way to communicate with us as humans. It's nature directly communicating with humans.
This is getting better and better. So, can you if you want to share your personal or your own whatever on a soul level like before and after all those years you've been doing this, is there like a transformation you can maybe share with me and our audience?
Yeah, thanks for the great questions. Yeah, I think when I came to that first ceremony where it really changed my life, I was going in there pretty feeling mentally unstable, feeling like I needed a psychiatrist or somebody I had to go to kind of sort out what was going on inside of me. I had some misgivings about my behavior, about my unease at the world, my just a lot of negative things coming in that I didn't know where they were coming from. And in that first ceremony, and I also went in as a complete atheist, a life coach, and just kind of coming off some years of some debaucherous lifestyle as well. So I'd come out of that for about 3 years of that. I'd been done 2 years of healing, but it wasn't healed all the way, I guess. I had some things that still need to come through. And so in that first ceremony, I saw a dark entity in my mind or in my space, kind of down and to the right of me, behind me. And a little bit it came out through a purge that night, but I was like, I talked to people running. I said, what is that? What is going on? I said, well, that's normal, and maybe more tonight. And the second night, it was this profound experience where this huge, energetic alligator, it felt like a black alligator. I just puked it like a 3-foot alligator into the bucket. I just visually saw it come out of me. And it was this, what I now know is like sex demons. And it was something that had been implanted as an early child, seeing a porno magazine when I was like 11 years old or something. And it just kind of infiltrated into me, and it'd been there for a long, long time. And I'd acted on it in some ways in my life. and I was ready to be done with it, and it came out, and I was like, "Holy shit, get the fuck away from me!" I can't. I don't know if I can cuss on anything, but I apologize if you're
Oh, please, authentic. Oh my
okay.
God.
That's what it was like. I pushed the button. I said, "Get the f away from me," because I couldn't believe it. And then for the first time, I could breathe as I could breathe as a child again. So when I took in air, I could take it in fully into my lungs. From that point, I was giddy for about 2 months, just because I felt this new sense of freedom that I had never experienced. And I went on to, get involved with ayahuasca, have many, many more ceremonies, purge many, many more times. And what I found is that the best parts of me remained, and those parts of me that didn't serve me well or didn't serve others, those are the things that I kept getting shown, but it wasn't fixing them for me. It was pulling that energetic configuration out and said, okay, now if you want to live from this place, you've got to keep them out. And the only way to keep those out are with your actions and your behaviors. So your behaviors, not just your actions outside the world, but your behaviors within the skull here too. So how are you living your life? Are you living your life as a fantasy and you're just a player in a video game? Or are you actually experiencing the true life that's around us? Are we breaking that barrier between the thoughts about life and actually living life? So and so from that place forward, I've been to the jungle many times. I've done 2-month-long dietas. I've sat with a number of curanderos and had many, many profound experiences. I'm a much calmer person now, less anxious, kinder, gentler. I live my life without agenda as best as I can. I always am watching that behavior. Like, are we trying to seek advantage here? Let's not do that. Let's actually just be authentic and everything, whether that's kind and friendly or not. Or maybe I'm really down and depressed some days. So be it. Go through it. Live life. This is our once in a lifetime, our only chance to live life. Let's do it as best as we can.
Well, thank you for sharing this, Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, because it's a very intimate thing, I think, to talk about, but because it's on a very, higher, much higher level or deeper level. Let me ask you before I forget that question, because I've read a lot and seen maybe documentaries or report testimonies of this and that, but I want to ask you, like, is it true that a lot of people, not many, but not all of them, but a lot of people went, on those kind of, ayahuasca journeys, and they came back, and that's some, like, even up to life-threatening, I would call them life-threatening diseases, would it be tumor, cancer, or anything, any kind of,
Oh, yeah. Sure.
disbalances. Have you like have had like personal encounters or observations with people who was like, hey, wow, it's like reverse everything?
Yeah, in addition, I guess I've sat in a lot of ceremonies, but I've also had the honor of actually being a helper in a lot of ceremonies as well. And so I can actually be the person that's, as things are going on and the medicine man is doing the ceremony, I can help somebody if they have difficulties, they need help going to the bathroom, something like that. And in one ceremony, we had a woman who had stage 4 cancer, and she was there with her husband. She was in her late 50s, and and she was hoping that maybe ayahuasca would help her with it. I didn't really think that it would, but I knew that it would help her see something on the other side. So as she transitions out of this physical body into what's beyond, that she'd have some semblance of what it was and be less afraid in that and have more knowledge. And so she said, I think twice, and then she did pass away maybe 6 months later. But her husband reported, says, for me, it was the greatest gift because we got closer and I came to peace with her passing before she passed. So it was a big deal for that. So I don't want to say there's any medical benefits, but if you have radical shifts in your way that you're living life, that those can lead to medical benefits. So,
Yeah, I was imagining, I mean, like when have these amazingly, real, curanderos like shamans who might, combine this with other, I mean, they have a vast knowledge, right, about plants and their effects. Like if you combine them, maybe, but I don't know, I'm just speculating, could be maybe an avenue, for a truly so-called alternative, the true, origin of healing, and not this, artificially created, Rockefeller allopathy.
Yes. Yeah, this
pharmaceutical,
healthcare is
and
coming
it's
down.
satanic shit that is going on. So
Yeah, I guess in that vein, I have another really dear friend, and he's has a number of medical issues he's trying to help through plant medicines, and ayahuasca is one of them, but many other things. And he's trying to be the first person to cure type 1 diabetes within himself, and it's
right.
been a long path, and that's just one of a number of things. So he's really trying to set himself as an example to really change. And my gosh, I hope he succeeds because I want to be the friend to the end of my life. So yeah.
Jesus, right now I'm thinking, hey, we should, I mean, hopefully, we get a time because, we have a daughter. She's like 3.5 years old. It's like totally different. When you have a child, everything changes, everything. But
Sure.
it's such a beautiful experience, of course, and most, humbling and experience but hopefully, when we have the right time, get together or go on this journey. But I guess, we have to wait until, we have the right set and setting and the time and the free space. Now I'm trying now to cross the bridge or transition to not to
Well, let's
necessarily
see.
to Bitcoin, but have you like had like you must have like going through all these to these conferences or meeting people whatever who deep are also like you and me deep into Bitcoin, like is there any like I mean, are there people like that are blocking it or, these kind of conversations, or have you met people who are like totally open-minded? It's like, hey, maybe even influential people, who could truly, uh, create maybe the infrastructure to accelerate, or what do you call it? Like facilitate for people to go into this journey if they are ready, if they're mature, ripe in the setting and, and maybe converge on I don't know, I'm going out of words, but do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I think I do. I can
okay, go
address it.
ahead.
I may not hit it exactly, but let's see. When I've talked to Bitcoiners about plant medicines and ayahuasca, I have just received nothing but, oh wow, I want to know more. Just like you. It's been pretty much the typical response of most Bitcoiners I talk to, and also a lot of Bitcoiners that have experienced it as well. So I know that a lot of folks have been out to the jungle, have a lot of folks have participated with psilocybin, both in ceremonies but also personally as well. So I think that's very common in the Bitcoin community, and I think because Bitcoin makes you question everything you ever thought about money, and then start questioning everything you thought about everything,
Yeah.
then eventually it gets to this question about, oh, what am I? What is looking outside of my eyeballs, as my friend Chris Douglas says? What is that? What is that looking out? Like, not actually my idea of myself, but what is actually experiencing this realm? And how can I find out more about it? And you can do it many different ways. You can do meditation. You can do, yogic practices. There's a lot of ways that you can get to higher consciousness. I would just say that plant medicines offer one of the fastest ways to have a deeper experience. So
Yeah.
there's that.
Yeah.
And like I said, with the right person. So, vet the people
Exactly.
that you
Yeah.
sit with.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not, I would never try like to hammer into someone like do, a psychedelic experience. It's like, hey,
No,
if it doesn't, maybe it's something else. Maybe,
no.
I don't know. As you said, maybe, I mean, I'm not a fan of meditation. I tried everything really, but as you say, what would you call it? Like a shortcut, like a shortcut to a portal, to a door that you
Hmm.
can just, like open it or close it or whatever, go to another portal, to another door. Is that like sort of,
It's a
maybe
shortcut in time, but it's not a shortcut in terms of work.
exactly.
That
Yeah.
the
Thank
proof
you.
of work within it is still the same required. So whether you sit with meditation and you're trying to get over some things or learn something about it, it's going to take a certain amount of time. This will take a shorter period of time, but the intensity of the time may be higher than through meditation, so that you'd actually have to, and I'm not busting on meditation at all. I think it's
Of course. Yeah.
phenomenal. I'm
Yeah.
just saying this is a way that you can, if you're uncomfortable with yourself, then maybe the best thing you do is get really, really intensely uncomfortable with yourself to see what that uncomfortableness is all
Yes.
about,
Yes.
and then examine that, put awareness towards it, and then shift your way of being because of that.
Yeah. Because I don't have to tell you, we live in a fucked up, crazy world right now, right? I mean, it's getting. I mean, of course, we've been living this thing like well, I don't know, the last 100 years, which we have been systematically stolen, not only on a monetary economic, but like on a technological level, which I would love to hear your opinion about, because I've had talks with Ashton Forbes and Mike Harrison. It's everything is here, and when you listen to all these Bitcoin OGs, or all these brilliant minds, will it be, it's like I have this feeling there's something missing. That's like highly intelligent, highly super intelligent, I mean, beyond comprehension. You've got all these people like talking like I have this. I mean, my humble perception. It's like very compartmentalized discussions, debates going on, and sometimes I'm like, and I have had like private talks with Daniel Prince, as you might have known. He's on some levels like much further, right? He questions a lot more than the average, let's say, Bitcoiner. Now, I mean, I'm trying now to transition to a topic now. It's a little bit sensitive, like existential, spiritual, psychological, and of course existential in terms of really as a humanity, as a human civilization. And and when we're talking about like the reality, like we are sort of in a speck of a dust, right, on this planet Earth. We are in a speck of a dust in a tiny little one of many solar systems within this galaxy. And the fact is, the reality is, if I don't know if you've ever been researching this or following Ben Davidson, he's one of the best, right, sun weatherman or suspicious observers. The magnetic field of the Earth
Oh,
has been
I've
decreasing.
actually, I actually
Yeah.
know, I've actually heard him talk before, actually.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
He's a
Have
good
you?
friend of, my friend Chris has really followed him for years. And I got to meet him just a few months ago,
No
actually.
way. Where did you
Yeah,
meet him?
yeah.
In Colorado, I guess. Yeah.
In Colorado, he's not far from Colorado Springs. So yeah, he had an event and we went to his event, a luncheon event, actually. So yeah.
God,
Ben
amazing.
David, I forgot. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What is he like? I mean, I would love to meet this. I mean,
He's just completing, him and his wife are just completing a center close to Colorado
Mhm.
Springs, and they're going to start holding events there. So I don't know what the nature of all of them will be, but yeah, stay tuned to him and he'll give you more
Oh
information.
my God, this is fascinating. So anyway,
Yeah.
so I also talked about, because I also talked with, I don't know whether you're familiar with Dave Collum. He's not a Bitcoiner, but you probably heard him in different podcasts, even Market Bent, or he's like a super brain. I think he's a chemical professor, like chemistry professor, but he's like a vast knowledge of, would it be, finance, geopolitics, macroeconomics. He goes into different rabbit holes, sacrosanct taboos, but so I think, I mean, I don't want to blow my own horn, but I partially, at least, I think I had planted a seed into his brain, into his heart and soul, and now I think it's come to fruition, and he's taking it seriously now. This topic, the magnetic pole shift, the exponential. I don't know. I don't want to call it exponential, but if you have like I think it's 5% per decade reduction of the magnetic field. That's sort of a protective layer which protects us from all kinds of, solar radiation, cosmic rays, everything. So it's coming. There's no way around. This is reality, and we got to face this reality. But and I know there are some other topics that Daniel Prince would love to, talk to other Bitcoiners. Like, hey,
Okay.
what? Don't talk about this. You might get yourself, you're losing your credibility or something like that. I'm like, Jesus, we're talking about like data, like facts, like evidence based. Like, I mean,
Yes.
do you have any kind of approach to this?
Yes.
Like finally, perceiving, understanding, absorbing, analyzing, comprehending the more holistic,
Mhm.
reality around us.
So for me, I'm an annoyingly rationalist person. That there's people in the spiritual world that are just can talk about all those things for a long time, and for me, it's very challenging too because I just want to. I perceive real. I want to hang on to this physical form universe that we have. Geology is a place where I'm like, okay, I understand geology, but I'm open to new ideas too. But I respect science, and when you start talking about woo-woo things, I want it to be true. Like I really want it to be true for myself. So I'm the hardest sell that you'll come across in terms of spiritual stuff, which is great because with that, I'm skeptical of all things. And what ayahuasca has shown me is that there is a reality adjacent to our reality that we're not so aware of. And we kind of mentioned some of that before with the electromagnetic spectrum as well. But even in just waking life, there's different realities we can live in. The difference between those days where you just feel like abundantly joy, you're with your wife and your child, and you're having just one of those magical days, that's reality. But then you have those days where it seems like the whole world turned against you and you're just defeated in a way. And that's yet a different reality. You say, well, that's just how I feel inside. But actually, how you feel inside is generating your actual reality. Because in those darker times, those are the times when it's like, this is what I'm actually experiencing. So knowing that there's a wide variety, and we'll see it in our city streets, the people that are living homelessly, they're living a very different reality than us folks living in houses, and it's really, really sad. And how can we actually change that so that nobody in our society lives that reality? And I think that path is Bitcoin, because the reason for that devastation is our whole fiat system. What radically changed, like how's this clown world really risen so powerfully and so strong? We can look back to 1971, and as Bitcoiners, we know that's when the dollar was temporarily removed from the gold standard 54 years ago.
Exactly.
And it has only accelerated, and it's moving closer and closer to the hyperinflation of the US dollar, because there's nothing they can do except print more. It's a matter of how fast they print it and for what reasons and what cover they give themselves to print more. So is it COVID? Is it the Ukrainian war? Is it the new war or new 3 wars they're dreaming up right now that are all going to be, these are the reasons we have to print more money. So Bitcoin re-incentivizes the world to be more honest, to be more fair, to be more abundant for all. Some will be more abundant than others, but all boats will be lifted through Bitcoin, a Bitcoin standard economy. And if that's not a spiritual awakening, I don't know what is, because changing the face of humanity on Earth also changes Earth itself as well. And as we do that, if we're just going to go out and buy Lambos with Bitcoin and we're just going to live a life of Vegas and cocaine and women and all this stuff, then we're not getting there. If we're actually going to go introspective and look at ourselves and see exactly what is going on within us and who we are, and with abundance, we have free time. What are you going to do with your free time? Are you just going to binge Netflix? If you have abundance, you have your place to live, you have all the money you need for the rest of your life, are you just going to be a sloth? Or you can actually do something important in this world? Because if you don't have to make money for a living, then what you have to do is your highest purpose,
Exactly.
your highest good.
You
have to
your
use
mission.
your talent in the best
Right.
ways you can. And if you're still blocked by trauma within you, things within you that keep you from being your best self, then you'll need some path to get over that. And I think plant medicines in their many different forms can be one way of doing that.
Okay. Wow. We're getting there. We're getting there, Tom.
We're
Okay.
getting there.
No, before we wrap up, we have to get there. We have to get there. I think we
Okay.
get there. Now, the reason because you mentioned Ego Death Capital, Lynn Alden and Jeff Booth, we talked about Jeff Booth. I'm a huge fan of Jeff Booth, of course, because I think he's trying really hard to explain to people. I'm just paraphrasing, really. I think what he's also trying to say, get out of the system, like think in Bitcoin, in terms also of right, in whatever unit of account, or think Bitcoin, right, not in fiat. And the potential, like all the businesses or any projects you do, think right from outside and look at it from outside. And I think what he's also trying, between the lines, I'm just trying to interpret right now, is that, and I've had a lot of conversations, discussions on this show and on everywhere privately, like, people have a really hard time, Tom, right? Imagining, let alone comprehending, not only what has been stolen from us, individual and collective, as humanity, within, let's just stick in the last 100 years, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, and considering and understanding for the first time, oh my God, we have these technologies out there. It's not some fucking sci-fi or conspiracy theory, which by the term has been coined and defined and established by FBI and CIA after the JFK assassination and stuff, just to debunk you and discredit you. But
Yeah.
it's like people have a really hard time imagining, oh my God, this is the life, this is the existence, this is the civilization we could have right now, today, yesterday, right? Would it be, any kind of a technology? Would it be energy, healing, propulsion, extending your life, or traveling to space? Literally, screw Elon Musk. I mean, he's a military contractor, and he knows this stuff. I'm betting he knows this stuff. All these things that Ashton forms, and a lot of people are trying scientifically, technologically, evidence-based to talk about. So this is the path. I think you're trying. I have the sense that you're also the intention of yours is to try to bring people to this point and like, okay, what are you going to do now, right? I mean,
Yeah,
right? What if we seriously don't have to work anymore? This is the future. We could have
we
right.
don't have to work. It's the difference between having optionality. So abundance is optionality. Wealth is optionality. And when you get to do whatever you want with your time, that's the greatest form of wealth you can have. And Bitcoin provides that pathway for that for everyone, actually. It may not look that way, but I believe it truly is. One thing that came to me through IO was this, that Graham Hancock, I'm sure you're familiar with Graham Hancock and his work, and he's had ayahuasca many, many times, and I've heard him speak. And one of his notions is that all the world leaders should at least take ayahuasca 5 times, that we could solve a lot of the world's
I
problems.
could talk about it, yeah.
And I agree with that, except I disagree with who he speaks of.
Exactly.
The actual leaders of the world are the future leader of the world, and some of the current ones are actually Bitcoiners. So that's why Bitcoin and ayahuasca, or Bitcoin and plant medicines, are so important, because we can do so much when we have greater connection to consciousness, and when we have abundance that we can deploy, a capital that we can deploy into the world in a beneficial way. Then it's our obligation to make sure that we deploy that capital in a way that is for the highest good of humanity, and also just happens to be the highest good for the individual, because the incentives are aligned. And so that we'll continue to build a better and better society. That the Renaissance happened when there was separation of church and state. The new Renaissance we're going into is the separation of state and money. And this Renaissance will be 10 to 100 times fold what the Renaissance was then. Because now we actually have some scary technologies like AI and whatever comes from AI, but those technologies can be for the greatest benefit of both Earth and for humans. And that we can get away from anti-human behavior and start having human flourishing on Earth due to re-incentivizing our entire society. And things something like homesteading, having a wife, a husband, having some kids, this is hugely in the Bitcoin world, looking after your nutrition, your health, getting sun. Shout out to Stephen Lupka. And yeah, I think we can just create a better world, and we're just at the beginning. We're in the pioneering terms of Bitcoin, and we have a duty as Bitcoiners to figure out what's keeping us from that future and start knocking down those roadblocks to that future as quickly as possible. And we see it accelerating now. We're talking about it in the political realm now.
Right.
Political candidates talking about it. I don't expect much from them, but they've changed the window on the whole thing. So. Yeah. There it is.
And it's still slow, to be honest with you. This is why, I want to come back to this acceleration aspect, right? Because when for example, again, talking about Ben Davidson, he talks about optimistically speaking, he says, he's like totally generous, and it's like, optimistically speaking, by 2050, maybe beginning of 2050s, that's a very optimistic scenario. We're going to have a Earth disaster cycle. And we are seeing it, right? The magnetic field of the Earth has been, especially since 1850, since the Carrington event, and decreasing faster and faster. So there is no way around it. Now, back to Bitcoin, is that how do we accelerate this process? Because we want to, right? We want to harvest the fruits. We want to have the comfort, the abundance, the technological evolution, the spiritual evolution. So this is, I think, my main concern. Like, how do we accelerate this process? We're talking about like a couple of decades, right? Maybe 30 years maximum.
And even the notion that we have to accelerate it may be flawed. That actually going at the pace it needs to go at is the right pace. And maybe that pace is being determined by Bitcoin, not by the humans.
Interesting.
And if it goes faster, that may cause more devastation for humanity. Going slower may cause less. So the need to accelerate it, I don't know if that's actually a warranted need. I think the best, I mean, with number go up, I believe number of adoption goes up. So that's
Okay,
what we see.
gotcha.
So as that goes up, and as adoption goes up, then the technical difficulties we'll face are going to be more intense, and layer 2 and layer 3 solutions will be needed to help accommodate all the different use cases of what Bitcoin can do.
Right. And the root causes, I mean, we're already living through these, phases, and it's getting worse and worse. And the pain point of let's say a critical mass of people, this is accelerating. This in turn, will accelerate this process. I mean, I think there's no way. I mean, I know it sounds a little bit woo-woo and esoteric, but I think this whole process of the reduced magnetic field, the cosmic rays, the increasing whatever different strengths of magnetic gravitational fields that are impacting us. Do you think this is somehow with it being connection with our soul, with our DNA, with our information carrier, right? On a magnetic field basis, is it? Do you have like a understanding or perception or interpretation like what it could do to us individually and as humanity?
If we had a Carrington event, which we were kind of close to not so long ago, it would be devastating to our technological society, and it would cause a lot of suffering. And there would be a reorganization of the way things happen, both in the supply chain and our daily lives, and how people can get food, get electricity, get warmth, all those things. It's going to take some human creativity to come out of that. We may lose a lot and have to rebuild some things. It's in Bitcoin, I'm not sure if it would bring it down. I know there's nodes inside of mountains in Switzerland. I know there's a node up in a satellite that Block has up in the sky. And I don't think there's a hard copy, but somebody said this, we should have a hard copy of the blockchain, the time chain of the Bitcoin. So it's actually, if it all goes away and all the silicon chips don't work, if we actually had it printed on paper, we could recreate Bitcoin from scratch off of paper.
That's actually a pretty good idea. I mean, probably necessary. You know why? Because everything will be obsolete, Tom.
Everything will be obsolete.
Everything. I mean,
then we rebuild as a species, and then we figure it out. Because one great thing about our species is we're super flexible, we're super creative, and we do best when we cooperate. And I think that's what Bitcoin does, is it forms cooperation for all of humanity, that we have a common good, a common goal, which is to protect the fruits of our labor, our capital that we've actually generated through life. It's no longer stolen from us, that we actually get to hold on to it. We pass it on to our children, our grandchildren, and our grandchildren's grandchildren. And our current system prohibits that.
All right. All right. I think this is a lot to unpack and digest for a lot of people, a lot of layers. Yeah. So let me give you I'd love to, by the way, I'd love to get you back on, maybe even on I'm thinking of a couple of people who we might just, get, I mean, it would be a beautiful complementary discussion, I think. But what would you say? I mean, do you want to share anything with my, with our people listening, whatever insights?
I think on both tracks. I think if you're still learning about Bitcoin, please keep studying. If you're not a Bitcoin maxi yet, please keep studying and listen to maxis, because it took me a while to figure out, oh, I want to be aligned with truth. I want to be aligned with the revolution that's happening for society, the positive revolution that's peaceful and doesn't require violence, that everybody adopts into Bitcoin so that everybody actually prospers and the bolts are lifted. If you're interested in plant medicines, I would say do more research, talk to people, and really educate yourself before embarking on any journeys with that, to know what's going on with it, and know the reasons why you want to do it as well. So actually look within and go, okay, why do I want to do this and for what reasons? And I think if you do, you can have a beautiful journey and experience in life and have a different understanding of the reality we live in.
Beautiful said. Can people besides following you, is there any I don't know, do you books, newsletters, or I don't know, anything?
Yeah, we actually have a podcast. I'm in our podcast studio right now, and our podcast is called Wide Awake in Babylon.
Awesome.
with Chris Douglas, my friend, and it's usually two of us plus some other friends, whoever's coming by, and we talk about consciousness, we talk about ayahuasca, plant medicines, and getting rid of this thing called the manufactured identity, this idea of ourselves. And once you get rid of it, then it comes up in a different way. So this constant ego death battle of figuring out exactly being who you actually are. So we have 58 episodes, about 2 to 3 hours each. So you
I'm
can
gonna
find
put
us on
that in the show notes.
Spotify.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
then on Twitter, I'm Tom Tabor Hodl, HODL. So TOMTABERHODL. And I'm on Nostr, but not as active, but I want to become more active there because Nostr is the future as well. And shout out to Source Node, my friend, who's a big Nostr, and
Great.
to Ari Burr as well, a good, great, awesome Nostr fellow as well. So yeah, um, those are good places to find us. We have a website that's up called Montaña Sagrada. So we have 100 acres here in Colorado where we have a ceremonial house, and we hold
Wow.
like cacao ceremonies once a month, and we have some other ceremonies that go on as well. So
Is it mm, allowed? I mean, is it legal in Colorado to?
ayahuasca is not legal, so we hold cacao ceremonies, which is the plant that chocolate comes from, and it's a
Mhm.
heart opening plant medicine. So we have a sound bath, sound healing session here,
Awesome.
and we do
Okay,
that sort of thing here. And then
beautiful.
we take groups to the jungle, to some curanderos we know in the jungle, well, about twice a year for a 10-day experience there.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah.
So you'd have to like make an appointment and book it like in advance, like sometime, or
Yes.
how does it work?
We're careful about who goes down there with us and stuff.
Okay.
So you reach out, and if
All right.
it's not the right thing, we can help point you and maybe some directions to find more information. So
Well, Tom, really appreciate from bottom of my heart, for sharing your, insights and knowledge and wisdom, and hope really to get you back on and maybe, in 6 months or so time. And thank you so much
thank
again.
you. Thank you, Kenyon. This has been a great honor. Appreciate you.
Um, see you
Have a good
soon.
day.
Okay,
Okay,
bye.
thanks.